Hello, this is Vampire. I've been having a discussion with fellow YouTuber Black Silk, and the topic has been on street versus sport. The popular saying is that sport martial arts will get you killed on the street. Personally, I highly disagree with this statement, but the important part of having a good discussion is the ability to share different viewpoints with someone coming from a totally different perspective and to be able to take a deeper look at the ideas brought forth. So, the opposite of this, in other words, a bad discussion is when you just parrot an opinion and try to force it down the other person's throat and being closed or looking down on the other person's perspective. So, right now, I want to briefly clarify my standpoint so you guys know where exactly I'm coming from. I'm a guy who trained in traditional martial arts and then went on to mix various styles including Jeet Kune Do, some modern tactical combat styles, and then I started to go into more sport-like styles such as Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and MMA. Most guys who have similar backgrounds with me usually converted to the combat sports. So they started off with something traditional like Taekwondo, and then they went into something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and they converted. So they kind of abandoned the Taekwondo aspect. But for me, this is not the case. I didn't convert, I didn't abandon the other stuff. So even though MMA, the sport of MMA, the cage fighting, that thing is the core of my style, but I continue to practice and benefit from the other non-sport styles that I have practiced. And even to this day, I do that. So if you watch my videos, you'll see that that's true. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to give you guys a little bit of an example of a real life situation that actually happened to me. Now, fortunately, I have been able to avoid a lot of street fights due to my awareness factor, I guess, just which comes from my martial arts training. So, and because of my pretty good lifestyle, I don't go to clubs, I don't go into bars or be in areas that I'm going to be susceptible to get into confrontations. So I haven't really had a whole lot of street fighting experience, even though I've had a rough security job and I have lived in very bad neighborhoods. Believe me, there were plenty of times where I got called out and stuff, but I was able to avoid the actual fight from occurring. That being said, I have had a lot of challenge matches, especially during my early martial arts years when I had a lot more of a big ego and this kind of a problem where I was pretty much acting like a gunslinger in the Wild West, where I had the attitude of anybody, anywhere, anytime, this kind of nonsense. But because of that, I did get into a lot of challenge matches. Okay, so in one of those challenge matches, there was a scenario where a couple of friends and myself, we were working out in our martial arts practice area. This was in a college, and there was a very nice wrestling mat that we got to train at. So we're the three of us working out there, and this guy, really really giant guy, he shows up, and apparently his background was he was in the Air Force. Worked as a bouncer, and the martial arts that he boasted that he said that he practiced was judo, and apparently he was also lifting weights. So this guy, he was wearing the weight lifter's support belt, and he came in very aggressive and pretty much challenging us right away. I saw him go with my friend, one of my friends who was actually a collegiate, no, not a collegiate, sorry, a high school wrestler. He is a former high school wrestler. The guy was this guy was almost 300 pounds. I think he was 300 pounds at one point, but he lost a lot of weight. And so, like I said, he was a fairly good wrestler, had some decent wrestling backgrounds, but he was a really big dude. Well, my friend, who was near 300 pounds at the time, went against this really huge judo guy, and it looked like Godzilla versus King Kong. And pretty much after once or twice, my friend didn't want any more of that. I didn't really see him get beat up. I thought he did very well, considering that the other guy was very intimidating in looks, and he was very, very aggressive. And this guy, he just wanted more. So what he did was he came up to my other friend who weighed about 160, 170 pounds, and basically picked him up with one arm, just scooped him up and curled the guy as if he was curling some dumbbells, and just picked him up and said, "Do you want to go next?" And my friend was like, "No way." And he challenged me, and I said, "No thanks." And this is the crazy part. The guy just attacked me. He just grabbed me and threw me onto the mat. And before I knew it, I was, in a survival situation. I guess the match had begun. So I had this really enormous guy on top of me who, had said he had judo background or whatever. So he was definitely trying to grapple me. My experience at the time was quite minimal, but I was training, let's say, on and off, officially and unofficially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had a strong interest in catch wrestling, and I had been doing other traditional martial arts. So anyway, I'm on the floor. This guy's on top of me, trying to choke me or whatever. And I remember I got into a pretty good position with this guy. Like, I had his neck, and I think I was attempting a guillotine choke, right? I was thinking, okay, you bastard, you attacked me. I didn't want this. This is a self-defense situation. You asked for it. I'm going to put you in a guillotine. And right as I was cranking it on, the guy said to me, he goes, let it go, man. Just like, let it go. And I thought this was almost like a I give up, I surrender type thing. So I listened to him being naive, and I let go. I thought there was something wrong, or he had surrendered, or he had enough, or whatever. So I let go, and he goes, "Ha!" and he takes my back. And I thought, wow, this sneaky bastard. Okay, so this is a lesson for the guys who have trained in sport styles. Like in my case, I was a sport grappler, and I faced a guy who was another sport grappler, but this guy was dirty, or he used a dirty tactic. My attitude today is, when you enter the sport, there are rules and stuff, but when I enter a competition, or not anymore, I'm retired, but when I entered a competition since then, I had the attitude that the rules are not there to protect me. The rules are there for me to basically where I could not screw up. And if I broke the rules, then I could get disqualified. So I need to follow the rules, but that doesn't mean that my opponent is going to follow the rules. So even though it's a sport match, even though they can't hit my groin or whatever, I expect all that. And if they did, I wasn't going to complain. So this was my later attitude, but at this time I was a much, much better practitioner. Okay, so back when I was in this situation where this humongous Air Force judo guy was attacking me, okay, I was still at a beginner's level. Okay, so even though you can say that sports style is susceptible to some dirty street tactics such as that, I would say sure, at a low level. And at this time I was definitely at a low level. So this is something, definitely, if you do practice combat sports, you do need to be careful of things like this. I mean, for me, I was just very naive, and right away, I listened to his words, and this was something that later it took me a long time, and even to this day I still practice not listening to verbal things such as that. So when I get into a confrontation now, I do my best to not pay attention to any verbal stuff that's going on. Um, so this is very important. But also, um, there's also the training for sports guys to listen to your corner, right? So that's a whole nother aspect. So being able to distinguish, am I listening to my corner or am I listening to this guy uh, who is my opponent, and he can be very devious. So anyway, that was a very good lesson on my part. And if you are interested in what happened, it doesn't even matter, but I did end up taking his back and putting him into a rear naked choke. I didn't choke him unconscious, but I did choke the heck out of him. He was coughing pretty hard afterwards. And I think he was in disbelief because afterwards I was pretty upset and I was pretty angry. I choked him pretty hard. Um, After a little bit, he was like, he acted like he was impressed. He was like, no one's ever done that to me, blah, 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 blah. And then before I knew it, he attacked me again. And this time, it was kind of cool because I used a finger lock, which I'm sure he did not expect. And I twisted his fingers to a whole new dimension. so that after that, he didn't want any more. And he said I should have become a bouncer, which was kind of a joke because I'm a small guy, and if I was a bouncer, every confrontation I would get into a fight, and that's not good for business, and that's not good for my health either. For him, like I said, he was a very intimidating guy. When you see him walking around in a crowd, he's a head and shoulder above everybody else, and with the mass to go with it, not just the height. But anyway, that's my little story, and I think this is going to be more than one part. So I think I'm going to make a sequel to this in this little mini series of street versus sport, and I would love to hear y'all's opinion on this.